Hello, my name is Sabne Raznik. You have found the channel here on YouTube where I do what I call mini readings, and the reason why I call it that is because it's usually just one poem, sometimes my work, sometimes somebody else's. I have a whole library here going back to 2011 of poems from all over the world, or at least I'm trying to get it there. I mean, usually I read the poems in English because that's the language I'm most comfortable in, and it is the language of the internet. If you find a poem you really like here, though, and you're able to read the original language, go back and do that. Read them next to each other. Go, oh, I really like that poet. Go back and discover more poems by that poet, more poems by other poets in that culture. Have fun with it. That's what this is about. It's like an introduction to world poetry channel, I hope. that's the goal. And yeah, there's stuff here going all the way back. So 13 years now, I think, and you'll find this bray has been around a long time. It disappeared for a while, and it's back like an old friend. So anyway, I thought we would do something different today, and I never monetized this channel so that I could share other people's work, because it's not about the money, it's about just sharing joy. But this might get me in trouble, and I hope not, because it is so different. I thought I would share song lyrics as poetry today. Something a little different, but the reason why I'm doing this is because, well, I'm all about the avant-garde and experimental, but also because I think songwriting deserves more respect in literary circles than it actually gets. Here's my reasoning on this. I took a songwriting class in 2012, and I actually wrote songs for a while, but then, you know, I have cerebral palsy, so I fall all the time. And I broke my mic, and it costs a lot of money for a decent mic, and I just don't have the money to buy another one. So that kind of went down the drain, because you know, having cerebral palsy also means fixed income type situation. Not complaining, it just is what it is. So can't really afford a decent mic. So yeah, songwriting kind of went out the window, but I took this class and I learned a lot about it. See, with poetry, you can play with the whole of language. You're playing with words, you're playing with words, you're playing with the blank space on the page, you're playing with spaces, you're playing with line breaks, you're playing with vowels, you're playing with consonants, you're playing with rhymes, you're playing with the sounds of, you know, you're just playing with the whole of language completely. Songwriting is a whole different animal. Songwriting has much stricter rules, because when you sing a word, things happen to that word that don't happen when you just speak it. See, because generally with poetry, you're just going to read it. So the way it sounds allows you to play with the whole word, and you can still get the beauty of the full beauty of whatever you crafted on the page across when you read it. That doesn't work with a song, because when you sing it, things happen to that word. What ends up getting, well, the word gets stretched for one thing, right? What ends up getting emphasized? The vowel. The vowel gets emphasized. So you end up, when you're writing a song, the consonants don't matter so much. In fact, some consonants you try to avoid altogether because they're too hard. You'll probably, the most readily recognized example I can probably give that just anybody will go, oh, yeah, I can see that, would be the letter R. Almost, unless you're working with country music, almost every singer out there drops the R, especially if it occurs at the end of the word. They will drop the R. Why? I mean, even if they're from a country where they generally hit the R's hard, like say you're Irish, right? They usually, when you're an Irish speaker or a Scottish speaker, you generally hit, not like Irish Gaelic or Scottish Gaelic. I mean, like, you speak English, but you're from those areas. You generally hit the R's pretty hard. Like, hard. But when they sing, they'll drop the R's. Generally. Well, at least if they're going to sing for mainstream radio, they drop the R's. Have you noticed that? Even they drop the R's. Because the emphasis needs to be on the vowel, and the R is a problem. The R is too hard. K's too hard. You know? So there's like a certain way you have to write a song because you want the emphasis on the vowels, because when you sing, that word is going to stretch. And you need the emphasis on the vowel because when you sing, that's what people are going to hear. That's what people, are going to hear the most is the vowel. So, and also, there's more emphasis on, at least it was always true even with poetry until like 1914, but recently, this is really just in the realm of songwriting now, but there's more emphasis on rhyming, a rhyme scheme, and meter. Like in a song, if you're going to drop the rhyme, then the song has to earn dropping that rhyme. You have to, if you're going to drop it, you better have a good reason for dropping it. You better have built anticipation for it with the song itself, because it's going to create an instability. And so there has to be basis for dropping that. Generally, you're only going to drop a rhyme, or you're only going to drop a meter, because meter is also very important in music, because meter, when you write the song, the meter of the song is the melody that the singer sings in a lot of cases. So if you're going to drop a rhyme and you're going to drop your meter, if you're going to change it in any way, it has to be earned by the song, which means the song has to create the anticipation for it, and it has to have a reason. Generally speaking, that reason will be you're singing about emotional instability. So you wouldn't do it in a song that you want to be joyful. You would only do it in a song that you're singing about heartbreak. Or say you're singing about your Pink Floyd and you're singing about mental breakdown. Then you can do it, right? Because it creates an instability. So then it has to be earned by the song. So the rules are stricter. And I think because the rules are so much stricter than for poetry, at least modern day poetry, right? At least poetry since 1914, I think it deserves more respect in literary circles than it gets, because it's kind of viewed as a second rate. People are like, oh, well, there's poetry, which is, and then there's songwriting and music. That's a different art form altogether, and it's not on our level. That kind of thing, you know. I'm not even sure what this means exactly, but I've noticed people tend to do it when they're being all snobby, so, but I'm not exactly sure what it means. I'm not good at social cues. It might be the fact that I'm neurodivergent, but I'm not very good at social cues. I do better with people that will just straight up tell me. Definitely not good at flirting and stuff, because it's like, well, just tell me if you like me or not. It's so much easier. Anyway, that's a whole nother kettle of worms, but anyway. So, yeah, so I thought today, it has been crossing some boundaries later. It has been crossing some boundaries recently, because like Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize for Literature, right? And he did it on the back of his song lyrics. He is a very notable exception to the rule. Kind of shocked everybody. Like, there was a lot of people that protested that, because they were like, why are you giving the Nobel Prize for Literature to a folk singer? I mean, we know it's Bob Dylan, but come on, it should go to a poet, oh my gosh, you have violated our sanctum. But it did happen, so there is like a little bit of a shift there that is beginning to occur, and I'm all for it. I'm not saying that it should become an everyday thing for for musicians to earn awards that are meant to be for writers, because they have Grammys, right? They have their own awards that writers can't earn. It's not like they're lacking in accolades. And my goodness, it's so hard to earn a Nobel. It's like 1% of 1% will ever do it. But let's give songwriting the chops it deserves, though. Come on, people. It's not a second-rate art. It's just a different art. It's not lesser than. It's just different. So I thought on this channel, or not on this channel, but today in this video, we would do song lyrics as poetry. And just so that we don't make people too uncomfortable, I chose a poem, I chose a song that reads a bit like a poem, looks like a poem on the page. It doesn't rhyme. It follows meter a little bit, but it is an irregular meter. It's a very unusual song. Even when you listen to it with the music, it will strike you as more of an art piece, maybe more of a soundtrack to a movie piece, not something that you would normally hear on a mainstream album. But it was released on a mainstream album, and I hope Universal Music doesn't pull the sound on this video for this. But anyway, this is a song called Fez Being Born by U2, and it's from their very underrated album. This album gets a lot of flack that I think is unnecessary. No Line on the Horizon from, what year was that? I'm thinking 2019. No, it wasn't that late. 2009. I knew it was a 9. 2009. Because my nephew was still alive when he came out. Like, one of the songs on the album was one of his battle anthems when he had cancer. So it took me a little while after he died to get to where I could listen to it again. I had to like find a way to reclaim it in a way, because he would have wanted me to. He wouldn't have wanted me to be like, oh, I can't listen to that. But anyway, this is not that song. That was more of a mainstream written song. That was the one about climbing a mountain or so. I don't remember the name of it right now, because as I get older, my brain is like scrambled. You know what my theory is that the older you get, the more stuff you have in your brain, and so my brain is like a filing cabinet in there. A lot of people have different ways of imagining their brain. Like, I've heard of memory houses, and if you've watched Sherlock, he called his a memory palace. Mine's a filing cabinet. But a lot of people have like different ways of expressing that. But I think, like, as you get older, that you end up with so much stuff in there, so many memories, and so much stuff you have to keep track of. It gets messy. Stuff ends up not getting filed where it should. Papers end up thrown in the floor and just piling up willy-nilly, and it ends up looking like Einstein's desk. Have you seen that famous picture of what Einstein's desk looked like the day after he died? That's my brain now. So I can't remember the name of that song right now, not right off the top of my head. But anyway, this one is Fez Being Born, and No Line on the Horizon gets a lot of flack. Now, even the band itself don't like it very much, because they feel like, which they do this a lot with their albums in retrospect, but they feel like it was never really finished. That's what they say. And I think it broke their heart, because when they started touring it, they noticed that people were not singing along with the songs like they usually do, and they were like, oops. They take too much stock in how they're in other people's reactions to their work, instead of just having faith in their work and liking their own stuff. You have to believe in yourself more than you doubt. They've got that other song, it's called Hold Me, Throw Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, from the Batman Forever soundtrack in the 90s. And one of the lines in it is, believing in yourself almost as much as you doubt. Well, they need to believe. If you're going to be an artist of any kind, especially if you're going to be an artist at their level, and especially if you're going to be a writer of any kind, because you get so much rejection and criticism, you have to believe in yourself more than you doubt. They need to work on that. You need to love your work so much that it doesn't matter what other people say. I guess that goes back to my other video where I was talking about the difference between reputation and integrity. You have to just really not care what other people think. But maybe that's just from me, you know, because I've been a professional writer since I was 13. And that's a lot of abuse and rejection. Just from trying to submit work to get it published, right? And then book reviews and all of that. You get to where you're just like, I could care less what anybody says about me or any of my work. And you have to get it. You have to have a really thick skin, or you're just not going to be able to make it as a writer. It's one of the things that I tell people who are just starting out writing. It's like, look, if your middle school bully, if you still have scars to this day from your middle school bully and the stuff they used to call you, you need to just hang it up right now and go find another job, because you're not going to make it. You have to just not care. U2 just really cares too much about what other people think of their own work. Now, personally, as far as this is one of my favorite albums of theirs, because it has that modern post, all that you can't leave behind, beautiful day, U2 feel, but it also harkens back a little bit to Oxen Baby, which is my favorite album of theirs. It has some of those Middle Eastern, Northern African tabla beats a little bit, not much. And some of that feel, I mean, the name of the song is Fez, right? That Northern Africa right there. And I really like it. I do think it suffered from the compression wars, where everything was, at this time, everything was making that switch from CD to streaming. Actually, from CD to iPod. But it was beginning to make the switch. I think the iPhone was about, either it was just invented or just about to be invented. So everything was making the switch. And I had an iPod at the time. But most of my music was still on CD. And my iPod was secondhand, because I'm so poor, you know. Everything I have is either a gift or a secondhand, or a combination of both. And so music producers would take, and you know, U2's music is made to be played loudly in a stadium or loudly on a stereo with I have subwoofer speakers, like I have still, because I still have my stereo from the 90s, and it still works. Not fully, there are aspects of it that no longer work, but most of it still works. So I can still listen to my subwoofers. But yeah, it's made for that kind of environment, the way they play music, you know, because they've always been in a live band. That's where they shine. So when they make music for that live environment. So these producers would take this big music with all these little subtle elements that you can only hear in big environments and with big speakers like that, and compress it 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 to where you can't even hear nothing anymore. And they would, to try to get it to fit on an MP3, like, because they didn't have lossless MP3s yet. And I think No Line on the Horizon really suffered from that. I would really like, which I can't use a turntable because with CP and I'm spastic, right? So especially anything that's a real delicate movement that you have to make, like with the needle of a turntable, for instance, where you have to place the needle on we used to call them records back in the day. Now they're just albums. I don't know why people stopped calling them records. Where you have to put the needle in the groove on the record. It's such a delicate thing because you don't want to scratch your record. I can't do that. I will scratch my record all to pieces just from the effort of trying to be so careful. Okay, so I've never been able to use a turntable, but I understand. People have told me that the best way to listen to No Line on the Horizon is on album format, because you get it on album format, it doesn't have all the compression. But if you get it on CD format, it does. And I think it really suffered from that because they compressed it so much that you lose all the delicate little nuance stuff that I know is in there. I just can't, I could never hear it though until we were finally able to unpack my stereo here, because when I first moved here it was years before we could get everything unpacked, and because none of us are healthy anymore, and it was just like not even a year ago we finally got my stereo unpacked, and it's like, oh, that's what that's supposed to sound like, and it's an awesome album. So I think it really suffered from the compression wars. But anyway, so it's really a good album, and I just think they really need to not pay any mind to the critics, but they pay too much attention, so now they don't like it anymore either. Just like the Pop album is a fabulous album, but they poo-poo on it too because the critics didn't like it. So they just like, stop listening to people and just have faith in your own work, boys. Anyway, this is from that album, and actually, I do have trouble listening to this one because it's got something in the background that sounds like static in the song, and that bothers me. This particular song, it's like got something in the background that's like through the whole song, and the rest of the music is great, but that little thing in the background drives me nuts. It's like trying to listen to a song, but you can't get the radio station tuned in just right. It's annoying. But anyway, I wanted to share this one because it's a song, but it's not traditional song. So it's like it's quite literary anyway. It kind of crosses those boundaries anyway. And I'm just gonna read it like a poem to show you that some lyrics can be poetry. Because yeah, I do think they deserve more respect than they do. Is this going to sound like poetry in the sense that we're used to reading free verse poetry? No, because there are aspects to it that are still very much songy because it is a song. But yeah, I think songwriting deserves more respect in literary circles than it gets, for sure, because there's so much goes into it. Anyway, Fez being born. 6 o'clock on the auto route, burning rubber, burning chrome, Bay of Cadiz and ferry home, Atlantic Sea, cut glass, African sun at last, lights flash past like memories, a speeding head, a speeding heart, I'm being born, a bleeding start, the engines roar, blood curling well, head first, then foot, then heart set sail. See, there's a little bit of run there. But even that doesn't follow, like, I don't know, it's not a conventional song. But it's also not exactly poetry. It like rides that line. I think that's a bit fun. And it looks more like poetry on the page too. Anyway, I hope Universal doesn't pull me, doesn't pull the sound off this, because I'm not monetized, and I'm actually not trying to steal copyright. I'm just trying to showcase this in a different way to make a point about songwriting it actually not being a second-rate art to poetry. It's just different. And this whole idea of some arts being more superior or highbrow than others is just a fallacy. That's just dumb. And anybody who's a true artist is not going to look at things that way. That's just... We don't do that here. We don't do that here. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, and I know I'm chatty, but I hope that it's a enjoyable, maybe edifying chatty, and not just a annoying chatty. I hope you have a fabulous day. Thank you for joining me, and don't